If you're watching this on The Prepper Historian, then you already know this channel is built for people who don't just want entertaining history. They want history that teaches. So, before we get into today's topic, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who appreciates real historical knowledge. Because what we're about to talk about isn't a myth, it isn't speculation, and it isn't some recycled Viking cliché. It's a survival engineering principle Arctic families guarded for hundreds of years, and it's something every modern prepper, homesteader or off-grid thinker should understand. This one trick can decide whether a winter shelter drains your strength or preserves it. And strangely enough, it all comes down to the way you build your roof. How Arctic families perfected a roof design that trapped warmth instead of losing it. When most people think of Viking or Norse structures, they picture longhouses with heavy timber beams and sod roofs. And while those existed, the Arctic branch of Norse settlers, particularly those living in extreme northern Iceland, Greenland and contact zones with the Sami, developed a roof adaptation that kept homes habitable when temperatures dropped so low animals refused to move. They built their roofs thick, yes, but that isn't the real trick. The secret lay in creating a dead air barrier inside the roofing layers using sod, birch bark and turf in a deliberate sequence so the roof acted as a heat battery rather than a heat leak. Most modern people underestimate what dead air can do. You don't need fancy insulation. You need layers that stop airflow without sealing moisture. These families stacked birch bark under turf, then added a secondary layer of inverted turf blocks so the roots faced outward. This inverted layer trapped moisture away from the living space. Between the layers was a naturally formed pocket of still air. Not circulation, not ventilation, stillness. That still air acted as insulation as effectively as wool, and better yet, it self-regulated. Even in storms, the structure lost heat so slowly that interior temperatures stayed remarkably stable. People assume more material equals more warmth, but Arctic Vikings learned quickly that mass alone wasn't enough. A thick roof without an air barrier becomes a cold sponge. It absorbs freezing temperatures and radiates them downward. Their trick was to prevent conductive heat loss by forcing the cold to move slowly through alternating organic layers. Turf, bark, roots and the soil microbes within them all slowed transfer differently. The result was a gradient roof rather than a slab roof. Heat moved upward, slowed at each natural boundary, and never penetrated outward fast enough to chill the room below. You can test this principle today by placing your hand beneath a roof with layered insulation versus a roof with a single thick slab. The layered build always wins because it creates thermal friction. Viking families knew this through observation, not manuals. Roofs that mimic natural ground layers stayed warm longer. Roofs that didn't begin dripping condensation, freezing at night and collapsing from frost heave. The Arctic didn't offer the Vikings warm winters, but it did offer one hidden advantage. Snow load, when managed correctly, helped insulation rather than harmed it. The silent roof trick included shaping roofs with a gentle, almost deceptive slope. Not too flat, not too steep. A steep roof dumps snow, which removes insulation. A flat one collapses. They aimed for what was often around a 25 to 35 degree pitch, allowing snow to settle lightly without compressing the turf. Snow on top became a seasonal bonus, turning the home into a temperature-stable mound. Families even reinforced the ridge beam with driftwood or whalebone when timber was scarce, ensuring the structure could handle the added winter mass. Snow acted like an additional layer of dead air because snow itself contains millions of micro-air pockets. It was a roof that improved with the weather rather than weakened. You don't need turf blocks or birch bark to replicate the effect. The principle is what matters. A roof or shelter needs layered materials that trap still air, regulate moisture, and slow conduction. Let's say you're building an emergency winter shelter in the woods. Instead of piling branches until they're thick, lay them in alternating directions to create pockets of unmoving air. Cover with leaves, then with snow. The key is to let nature create the layers and the stillness. For a homesteader building an off-grid shed or cabin, add a simple air gap between your insulation layers. Create a moisture-safe cavity so condensation can't degrade the structure. Step 1. Apply your main insulation. Step 2. Install thin furring strips to create a narrow air pocket. Step 3. Add your final cladding. That single gap, even an inch thick, will change how your shelter retains heat. Even in urban prepping, this knowledge applies. If you're insulating a garage, chicken coop, greenhouse, tiny home, or mobile shelter, the Viking principle beats simply adding more fiberglass or foam. Create layers, slow conduction, and force heat to pass through multiple boundaries. The physics hasn't changed. The reason most people never hear about this technique is simple. It wasn't written down. Arctic families passed it through practice. When turf houses fell out of use, the method faded. By the 20th century, researchers reconstructing Viking homes often built the roofs incorrectly, forgetting the air barrier and inverted turf layer. Those reconstructions performed poorly, making historians assume Viking homes were colder than they truly were. It wasn't until careful excavation in Iceland and Greenland revealed the layered roofing stratigraphy that the mistake became obvious. For preppers today, this is more than historical trivia. It's a reminder that old methods survive because they work. The Silent Viking Roof Trick is a perfect case of engineering born from necessity, observation, and ruthless climate testing. It's proof that extreme cold teaches lessons modern builders sometimes forget. And if you want more survival-focused history like this, real techniques, real archaeology, real application, make sure you subscribe to The Prepper Historian and share this video with someone who loves learning what the past still has to teach us.